and Carmen, who will each introduce themselves shortly in more detail. Before I move on, we will do some housekeeping. So I will move to Linda, who will talk through our housekeeping.
Perfect, excellent. So anyone who's not talking, if you can put yourself on mute, and if anyone has any questions to ask the group, if you can use the questions and answer section more than the chat. And what I'll do is I'll keep an eye on that, and then we'll ask all the questions at the end, because I know that we're quite pressed on time as well.
Thank you, Linda. So the first person I'm going to introduce you to is Mayank Shah. This gentleman I have known for many, many years. And in fact, Mayank was the man who got me in front of a group of people where I did my very first presentation. So I have to thank him for either my successes or my failings. Mayank Shah is founder and CEO of MSD UK, and it gives me real pleasure to introduce him today. Mayank's going to do a series of slides where he'll tell us all about MSD UK and who they are, why it's important to work with diverse and minority suppliers. He'll tell us about some of their successes and how you can engage with their organization. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Mayank.
Thank you, Carol, and for such a warm reception. And I think we all have come together over here to look at a very serious issue that we are all facing in our society. We look around us, and especially this year, we have been, it's an eye-opener where we have seen the social economic inequality all around us. And collectively as a society, I think we have done really well by coming together, trying to support our communities, whether it's, so many different issues that surround us. So I'm really delighted to be here, with people, with like-minded people who really want to make a difference. A very quick introduction. I'm the founder and CEO of Minority Supply Development UK. We are UK's premier leading organization that supports ethnic minority businesses and their growth by helping them connect with global supply chains. Now, many of you in this group are working as travel managers for some global companies, but also run your own businesses. And it is important that we look at the multicultural market because that's the consumers of the future. So if I show you some slides to give you a reality check of where this multicultural society is going. So one of the really interesting stats that came from the 2011 census was, and the study afterwards was that ethnic minority businesses currently are around 18 to 20% in the UK, but it's going to be around 38% by 2050. It's going to be one of the most diverse country after United States. So if you look around this chart, you could see that UK is growing exponentially. The percentage of ethnic minorities is growing. It's going to become one of the most diverse nations, which I feel really proud of, and I'm sure every one of you in this room. But what it says to us is that this is a growing market. This is a growing group of consumers of the future, a future workforce, future business, community that is going to be there in this country. And how do we engage with them? So next slide. I think we all are looking at we all heard the term, the brown pound. What it means is that what's the purchasing power of minority communities? When it was in 2003, the brown pound or the power, consumer sort of power and spending power of Black and ethnic minority communities in this country was 32 billion. In 2012, it rose to 300 billion. And I'm sure by now, when we are talking about 2020, it must have reached around 500 billion. That's a huge market to tap into. How do you get your brand in front of those communities? Either by engaging them through providing them employment or by doing business with them. If you look at some other stats, which is really interesting, South Asians are the fastest growing middle class and they account for half of all new UK millionaires. Very, very important that, we're talking about, a huge number of people that have disposable income and they are big spenders. So if you're looking for market access, extending your market, that's another good statistics to look at. And the Chinese community is now considered one of the top earning groups in the UK. When you look at multicultural audiences, and I talk about, I'm an immigrant to this country, but when immigrants, the migrant community in this country, it's just about, for me, why I left India was to make a better future for myself. And that's the story of all immigrants. So when you will find these communities have more educated, they are more aspirational, upwardly mobile and brand conscious. Another big important stats over here is that 53% of BME audience say they prefer and are more likely to purchase from brands that represent their culture. Brand loyalty is hugely important in multicultural communities. Some really good stats for you to look at, because this shows the power and increasing spending power of these communities also, which is your future market. Next slide, please. So why should you do business with ethnic minority businesses? I think some of the stats that I showed before is good example and set up a business case for why you should engage with ethnic minority businesses. 15% of the population, this growing pool of consumer, as we saw, they are a dynamic group of suppliers. We have been at MSD UK working with ethnic minority businesses for the last 14 years. And I can tell you, we have some amazing entrepreneurs, and they are in all industries. They are doing international business. So they are global travelers. So there's a huge group of suppliers that you can access. 10% of our SMEs in the UK are from BME background. But also, the important thing is the impact you make by engaging with them. 71% of those ethnic minority businesses are still located and live and do business in some of the most deprived communities in this country. So by helping them grow their business, you are helping them create more jobs, create more wealth in those communities. So there is a social impact that every action of yours will make and make UK a much more fairer and much more equal society. Next slide, please. And this is where I want to do some, throw some questions, ask some questions to the audience and see, where we are with, what you know about the BME businesses and BME community. So can anyone in their chat box name the largest ethnic minority business in the UK? This is going to be fun. And can anyone type the name of the largest ethnic minority business? And to give you a hint, this was very big in news around 3 weeks back. No. Someone has said Accelerator Mittal Steels, ArcelorMittal Steels. No. This the largest ethnic minority business. One more chance. Anyone can think. They were in big news three to 4 weeks back. Right? Do you know and have you come across takeover of Asda as the supermarket by two young Asian billionaires from Blackburn? They bought out Asda from Walmart for 6.8 billion. And so Asda became the largest ethnic minority business in the UK. How many unicorns or startups valued at more than 1 billion are in the UK? And how many of them are has at least one ethnic minority founder? So there are 18 unicorns in the UK, and 6 of them, so that's 1/3, has at least one ethnic minority founder. Which is the fastest growing company in the UK? Any guess? Have you come across the renewable electric supplier Bulb? They are the fastest growing company in the UK, founded by a British Indian. And finally, What's the combined revenue of top 100 ethnic minority businesses in the UK? Any guess in the chat box? The combined revenue of top 100 ethnic minority business in the UK. Any guess?
Nothing in the chat box.
90 billion. Nearly 92.1 billion. That's the combined turnover of 100 EMBs. The reason I wanted to show these questions, ask you the answers, is to just give you an overview of where ethnic minority businesses are. They play a huge role in our economic growth and a British economy. And it's time that we all engage, because this is what, by engaging them, by doing business with them, working with them, but also engaging with the ethnic community, you are going to make this country a much better place, much more fairer economy, much more equal, and get them into the mix. I think that's the message, that ethnic minority businesses are there, and the community is here, which we cannot ignore. And I think inclusive strategies and inclusive approach leads to inclusive growth. So it's in everyone's interest that we make sure that everything that we do, we have this in our background, that we need to make sure that we take every one of us together. That's my message.
Thank you, Mayak. That's a really amazing presentation. And, the numbers speak for themselves. Why would you not want to tap into $300 billion? Just by supporting, as you say, it will help the deprived communities. It will bring wealth and jobs to those communities. So absolutely, and an amazing message. And at the end, we'll be able to give you details of how you can contact and get involved in Mayak's organisation. That leads me really nicely onto our next speaker, who is Ranga Chidawanika. Ranga is one of the gentlemen that started the Black Men's Travel Network. And it was really interesting to find out why Ranga felt the need to set up this group, what actually inspired him to do it. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Ranga to start answering some of our questions.
Hi, Carol. Thanks for having me here. I guess what inspired and motivated me to form the Black Men's Travel Network is, I guess, throughout my career as a Black man in travel, I became used to being one of the only, if not the only, Black man in the room or person in the room. I never had anyone who really went through similar experiences, someone I could consult with and exchange ideas with that looked like me. And I was looking for something like this for a long time. It just wasn't there. I would go to conferences, conventions, you would see the odd Black person and across the room, give them the customary head nod, but always wonder, I wonder what they're doing. I wonder, if, that there's opportunities there. So moving forward, so I immigrated from the UK, from London to New York a few years ago. I now live in Seattle. But the Ahmaud Arbery murder and then the George Floyd murder really just gave me that push to start something myself. I had some amazing colleagues calling me to check if I was okay when the whole Black Lives Matter movement was at its peak. But I was reluctant to really speak from the heart because I didn't want to come across as that angry Black guy at work, So I really created the group to be a safe space for Black men to come together and bounce ideas off one another and just share experiences. The group's gender.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to jump in because I was just going to say, what's the agenda? And I'm going to go there, Ranga. Why just Black men? And can we meet them, please?
Great questions, both of them. I'll begin with the first one, which was, what's the agenda? Our mission statement is It's a networking group with a mission of allowing Black men to grow, enrich, and evolve their careers through support, fellowship, and community. Through that, we came up with 3 key elements for our group that I'll refer to as our 3 pillars of excellence, which are networking and brotherhood, recruitment and influence, and mentorship and development. The pillars were really designed to change the face of travel in our industry. By directing our focus to those pillars, where we hope to be able to take action and influence companies within travel to support and direct their dollars to like-minded organizations who are aligned with our mission of inclusion as a source and consideration, and internal unconscious bias education and training for all employees. So that was really our mission and what we were trying to set about. Why just Black men? I get this question all the time. I think that there's room and there's opportunity for more inclusive networks, and there are you know, TAMS has their division of it. WINIT, Women in Travel, has you know, their own thing. GBTA Lad is a great mentorship program within travel. So I looked at that and said, there's already a lot out there, and I could choose to join one of those. But for me, this is what I think that I needed. And I was, you know, wasn't surprised that many other men felt the same way and joined and was like, oh my God, I've been looking for this. I think as men in our culture, we're stigmatized and cultured into being strong and keeping silent. You know, you have to be a man, suck it up, you know. We do have some tough emotions that we go through, believe it or not. And I wanted people to know that it doesn't mean weakness. I really think it means strength. To have the courage to speak your truth and talk about if you're upset, if you're scared, if you're sad, if you're lonely. I wanted it to be a safe space to reverse some of those messages that we've been fed about strength and about what being a man is. And I felt that had I included more groups or everyone else, it would have diluted the mission. And I don't think a lot of men would be as open as they are in our group. And that's really why.
Ranga, I think that it's so beautifully said. And, you know, although I was pulling your leg, I just think that it's important. It was so clear and so authentic why this network has been put together. And I think it's amazing as well to have role models that other the younger generation coming up can actually see and have a safe place that they can go to and meet with like-minded people. So I think that's absolutely amazing. But I will get you linked up with the WINIT group. It will be your group and the WINIT, and we'll see if we can do some sort of challenge. Okay, but amazing, absolutely. And then if anyone wanted to join the group, how would they go about doing that?
We have a LinkedIn group, a group on LinkedIn, and that's the official kind of channel that it is members only, so you'd have to request membership. And it is open. The LinkedIn group is open to everyone. You know, we're looking for advocates, for mentors, for Black men and travel and out of travel and speakers. And we have guest speakers every month when we have our meetings. So, you know, that's what we're really looking for. So the LinkedIn group is there. It's called Black Men's Travel Network. Failing that, you can also contact someone who a lot of people might know, some people might not know. He used to work for HRG Consulting here in New York. His name is Paul Coverdale. He leads our recruitment committee. It's paul.coverdale, COVERDALE @gmail.com.
What we'll do, Ranga, is at the end, when we post everything, we'll get the additional information from you, so to ensure that everyone that's on, that's interested, will get the details so that they can contact you. But thank you, really inspiring, absolutely love what you're doing. And I'm now going to move over to Stephen. You know, we couldn't have this panel without talking about our children and young people. And, you know, it's all about the grassroots. Every time you talk to our group, we talk about the grassroots and educating, mentoring, and taking our young people through the journey, because they are our future. And if we don't support them, you know, that, you know, we are going to end up being in the same place we are today, having the same discussions. So we're opening the gates for them. And Stephen has agreed to join us on the panel today to talk about his organisation and the support that he is giving to young children and the younger generation. So I'm going to kind of pass the floor to Stephen to tell us all about what he does, and we'll take it from there. You're on mute. He's on mute. He's on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. Mute. We can't hear you.
Mute.
Yeah. You're on mute. You're on mute. Yeah. Better?
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Second time lucky. Okay. Thank you, Carol, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name's Stephen Russell. I'm the founder of Element SEM Support. SEM stands for Social and Emotional Mental Health Support. So I support children and young people in primary and secondary schools that might be facing certain issues at home or in school. So I sort of support them through behavioural issues and things like that. So my why did I sort of create Elements is based on my own childhood. So as a child, I suffered trauma, neglect, abuse. I moved around 9 foster homes. I lived in 2 children's homes. I attended 5 different schools. And when I left school, I didn't know which way to go. I never had a mentor. I never had anybody that could give me that direction. And years passed, and then I decided that I wanted to give something back to the children that I felt that I could have had as a child myself. And that was nurture. That was a therapeutic process. And what I call that is my pain to purpose. And by giving that back to the children, it gives me fulfillment. It gives me a sense of purpose. So that's the reason why I created Elements. Elements is based on 4 elements: the physical health, the mental health, the environmental health, and the social health of a child. So when a child is referred to me by a school, I'll go through a process with them. I'll talk to them about physical aspects, things like how much exercise they're getting in the week, how much water they drink, anything to do with their physical aspects. Mental health: do you have somebody that you can talk to when you're feeling down? You know, I always say to children, if you take away the parents, the family environment, the school, the friends, who do you have left? And very often it's nobody, not unless there's a football coach or somebody around. So that's where I come in and I say to them, look, I can be that person for you now for the next 12 weeks or however long it is that I'm with you, and that you can have that safe space with me, and that anything we talk about is confidential. I don't go back and talk to anybody about it, not unless it was a safeguarding issue. And we create that relationship based on trust. And I think one of the things that's really important is that children have that outlet, that children have that opportunity, because quite often they don't. They grow up very quickly. They turn from 5 to 10 to 15, and all of a sudden they're ready to leave school. They don't really have many opportunities. And I think when we take into consideration something like the travel industry, which is very much new to me, it's an area that might be unknown to children. And I think that's a very inspirational thing that we can offer to children, to say, look, there are these options out here, and you can actually jump on board something like this. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, whether they want to become an air pilot or whether they want to get into the hospitality business. It can be multiple things. You know, communication's a big area now. A lot of children I work with, they want to be YouTubers, they want to be, you know, jumping on front of a camera. And that could be entwined with travel. You know, very quickly you could be a YouTuber doing something in hospitality or doing something within, you know, anything else to do with the travel industry. So I think we live in an interesting time. I have been saddened by the recent events with George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, COVID-19. 2020 has been, it's going to go down in history as one of the biggest years to create a lot of turmoil in people's lives. But I also want to be optimistic about it and think about the things that are positive that can also come out of this as well. So thank you for inviting me here today. I'm very, very pleased to be here and talk about Elements.
It's really lovely to have you, actually, and it's really inspiring to hear some of the stuff that you're doing and how you're working with your with the young people that are in your organization. And a lot of us, when we come in this industry and we get involved in different things other than our own work, we talk about giving something back. So it was really nice to hear you say that, because this is what we're all about, giving something back. And by showcasing you, we're hoping that we're giving you the stepping stone and the opportunity to meet people like Mayak and Ranga, and really kind of network with them and and showcase to the children that you're working with the other opportunities that there are out there, especially on the Mayak side, where it's all about startups, innovation, working with smaller organizations, and they could see so much more than I want to be a footballer or a rapper, or there's so much more out there that's really exciting. Having Ranga's group as role models as well. Would you like to tell us something about some of the successes that you've had and the benefits of what you're doing as well?
Yeah, for sure. So when I first started Elements, I wasn't too sure which direction to take it in. And what happened was I had my own mentor actually that sort of said, you have to believe, you have to keep going. So even when you knock on 10 doors, you got to go and knock on that 11th door. That was my attitude. And I approached about 75 schools. Not one of those schools got back to me. Not one of those schools replied. And I thought to myself, is this going to work? Do you keep going? How much do you keep putting in? But I had that attitude that I had to keep going. Your purpose is more than 75 doors. You've got to keep going. So when I think about my successes, I think about like that 100th door that I knocked on, and the school said, look, we haven't got a big budget, but can you come in and do some sort of voluntary work for a bit? And I says, yes, I can come in and do that. That's not a problem. I'm not here for the money. I'm here for the experience. I want to grow. So they brought me in and they gave me 8 students that were close to permanent exclusion. After 12 weeks of working with these students, 2 of them were permanently excluded, 6 of them wasn't. And at that moment, the school said, you know what, you've clearly done something here to kind of steer them in a different direction. Now we're willing to pay you. And that's when I thought to myself, this is my pain to purpose. I've got to keep going. That school spoke to another school. I went and did an assembly on diversity. That school loved it. It was a diversity assembly for a primary school. And that's how schools work. They network. So all of a sudden, I was getting in more schools and it was growing and growing and growing. And that's where my biggest success came from, really. But I think when I think about the biggest success, it's when you look into those children's eyes. And I don't want it to sound corny or cheesy or anything like that, but when you're sat down in a session and you're looking into the eyes of that child and you're thinking to themselves, they don't get this opportunity quite often. And now that they've got it, they're actually taking something with it, and they're really enjoying this experience. And for me, that's the biggest payment that you can get. It's priceless to have that look back in the children's eyes, and the feedback that comes from the schools after you've done your work it's priceless. So definitely a big success for me in the Elements journey, I suppose.
And that is so right. You have to see to be, and, having role models, having the right people around you, having the right attitude. Our panel is about stop, think and listen, and that will be our mantra. We will keep stopping people. We will keep wanting them to think, and we'll also want them to listen. And it's to people like you that we want to bring to the table so that you can showcase and say, this is what we're doing and this is how you can help us. So very quickly, just tell us how organizations can support you.
I think, again, the travel industry is very new to me. So I'd like to have a bit more exposure around what's going on out there. And, even things like going into schools, when you think about the assemblies, when you think about the workshops, schools are a massive hub really for getting any message out, not just to students, but to teachers, to parents, to TAs, to anybody that's connected to the school, to other organizations that go in and do similar work that I do. So exposure, networking with everybody, finding out a bit more about the industry and how we can actually get that plugged into schools as well. So it can become inspirational for children as well to do better than what they've got. So definitely.
So you heard it first, industry. Let's get out there and support. And finally, we could not have had this panel without Carmen Smith, our culture and belief lead in TAMS. That's one of the strands that will be doing so much for the diversity, inclusion and equity group. And today Carmen's going to talk about how she has felt being part of the group, so what the experience has been like in the journey, what the plans are, and then she's going to introduce our Race Conversation Toolkit, something that we have put together and we want to give to the industry first of many that we plan to share with the industry. So I'm now going to move over to Carmen and she can take the floor.
Well, thanks, Carol. Surely this has already been an inspiring conversation and session. You know, for me, race and culture are something that needs to be explained in some cases. It needs to be understood. It needs to be expounded upon. You know, we're talking about the different aspects here. You know, you have Mayank and Stephen and Ranga talking about the various aspects. But what people, when they tend to talk about Black and brown people in general, they put us in a general category. It's the same socioeconomic category, the same we all look alike category, we all come from the same place category, and there needs to be education on what race and culture means. All of us here could be considered the same race, but different cultures. You know, Carol, I know you're Caribbean born, you all live in the UK. You know, Ranga is a British citizen that's come to the US. You know, Linda has come from Africa. I'm African American, but so we all may be of the same race, but different cultures. And so when we're talking about brown and Black people, we need to have that differentiation, that education, that training, but what that really means. You talked about George Floyd, and you talked about, you know, the killing of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. Well, you know, these are things that have been happening for 400 years. The thing about it is nobody had listened, nobody believed us. Thankfully, with the invention of social media, cameras, smartphones, etc., it is now documented. And so now the world can see, and I think that's the significance with George Floyd. The world was able to see, unfortunately, a man being killed at the hand of the police for 8 minutes, I believe, and 42 seconds with somebody's knee in his neck, and he's telling them he can't breathe. And so it brings about many different issues, particularly in the United States, you know, with Black race culture, with slavery, you know, the perpetuation of Jim Crow and the continuation of institutional racism. So all of these things are topics that need to be spoken about. And so that's why this committee was so important to me, because these things need to be addressed. We finally have a platform in which to do so. And just as you can see, all of the needs out there, you know, Mayank is talking about Black businesses. Well, listen, I am a Black business owner and have been for many years. And just the, you know, even in travel, I owned a full service brick and mortar travel agency for years. And a lot of times the travel community didn't even reach out to the Black community because they didn't think we had the money to travel. So that, again, a stereotype that we don't travel, that we don't have money to travel, that we don't have discretionary income. And believe it or not, we travel in bulk, and we travel a lot, and we travel, you know, we spend a lot of money in travel. And so these are the things, you know, and our spending power, to Mayank's talk about GDP, you know, talking about the, was it 92.1 billion pounds from, you know, 100 ethnic minority businesses. Well, you know, the Black and brown spending power equals and is greater than many countries, some countries' GDPs. So, you know, just knowing that there is power, knowing that there is, you know, what we spend it on, who we spend it on. I think the problem is sometimes manufacturers, I would say I don't want to say of distaste, but things that don't do us any service, you know, tend to target our communities, you know, whether it's alcohol or cigarettes or et cetera, you know, things to bring us down. And so I think there needs to be more uplifting, you know, to Stephen's point, he was talking about the uplifting, and our children are the greatest needs that we have. I mean, you know, our young Black boys, especially. I am a mother of a Black son, you know, and I talked to his principal years ago about falling through the cracks. And, you know, his principal, to his credit, wanted to know what that meant. But our young men sometimes around 4th grade, 5th grade, middle school start to fall through the cracks because they don't have the mentorships. They don't have sometimes the men in their life. We're talking about men, you know, not always in the home. So missing Black men, which I think is critical, and why Ranga's his organization is so important. Someone told me a long time ago, on your way up, take someone with you. And so having that mentorship, having someone around that can lead you and guide you and expose you, Stephen, those roles are so critical, and the credibility that he has in talking to these young men is, hey, I've been there. I know what you're talking about. When you're exposing kids, sometimes they say, well, you don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know what I know. You don't understand. Well, really, you do understand. And so that's what makes this so important, because the credibility is there. Ranga talked about us being the only one in travel going to large conventions, and truly, I know Leslie's on here, but Leslie and I would go to GBTA and we'd look around and we're like, well, we're all the Black travel managers. We're the Black folks, it's just us. And, it's not always a bad thing, but it is a bad thing because there is that ceiling. You mentioned Win It. I have been a member of Win It when Mick started it. It's something that is something we need to talk about. The ceiling of, women in travel. There's ceilings, we have 90% women, but how many of us are in top executive roles? So, we're all over, and very prevalent.
Thank you for that, Carmen. So talk us through the Race Conversation Toolkit. Just give us a very quick run through of our toolkit. I think we have it up. We're going to have it up on the screen.
So, yep, this is going to be the gift that keeps on giving. And this is the toolkit, and I'm going to walk you through this. Also, with this is, in order to get this, you do have to become a member of TAMS. And I do want to take a special shout out to Susan Lichtenstein for her vision. With TAMS, I was a part of the original standards that we put TAMS for, to talk about industry standards and safety and all those things across the industry. And now we've become such a diverse community. And so thank you, Susan, for your vision and being able to allow us this platform. So we're talking about the race conversation and the toolkit and how do we get there? Joe, next slide, please. So just a credit to the authors, myself included, Linda Biko, Carol Fergus, and Leslie Andrews. And we talked about this kit because we said there needs to be a guidebook of, what is race about? What is culture about? What is diversity about? And all the terminology that you may hear us talk about. Joe? And so again, this toolkit is really to start the conversation. How do you talk about race? How do you talk about those uncomfortable conversations? Somebody may not know how to approach it. Maybe they have a lot to say about it, but don't know how to say it. And so we want to make sure that we provide a platform, a safe place, as someone talked about, how to overcome that discomfort where people can have meaningful conversations without feeling like they are going to be slighted or they're going to be bashed for saying something. And so we want to make sure that, again, we offer a safe place, not singling somebody out for speaking. Ranga talked about not being that angry Black man. Well, I truly can attest to that, the passion that we have about the things that we do and the things that we believe in. We don't want to sound like that angry person, but on the other token, we also want others to be able to ask questions about us, about race, about culture, and not be afraid to do so. Joe? So again, this is talking about a safe place. Am I positioning this right? Is this the right atmosphere in the environment? Are you listening? So a lot of times we're here, we're doing a lot of the talking, but there has to be an environment where we can actually just sit and listen, hear what the other side says. Why are people afraid of us? Why do they have trepidation about approaching us? Why, just curiosity. Why, Carol talked about her hair is braided, mine is natural. I go to the barber shop now. I don't go to the beauty shop and get a relaxer. So why do we wear our hair natural? Those might be just some simple conversations. Or why do we wear the earrings we wear, the jewelry we wear? So just being able to listen and allow others to ask us questions without saying anything, without necessarily bringing our point of view into the conversation, but just listening and making an open space. Joe? So confidentiality is really key. Again, I'm going to talk about safe space, but confidentiality is critical on your job. I've had staff on my team come and really have to say things. We've had conversations throughout our company, about race, about culture, about Black Lives Matter. And, people will come and say, well, what do I do? What can I do to help? How do I give back, or how do I listen? And so you have to provide a place that they can feel that they can come and talk to you. They're not going to hear it again somewhere else, that you're not going to betray their confidence. And so we are really a place of confidentiality and privacy. And I think that's a lot of times where the conversation can start, when somebody knows that they can say something to you and knows that it's not going to get all over the place and spread. Joe? Language and tone is very important. Actions speak louder than words. You do by doing. Stephen is a prime example. Doing, allowing his young men to see him in action, to see his leadership. As parents, a lot of times we say, do as I say, but kids emulate, people emulate, do as you do. Are you a leader? Are you an example? How do you carry yourself? What is the tone that you're presenting? If I'm always going around angry, or if I'm always going around, who's going to approach me? We have to be approachable. We have to invite people to come in. And that's what this race and culture is about. We're inviting you to come in to learn about race and culture. We're inviting you to come in to learn about brown and Black people, other people that are of minority groups, ethnic minorities, LGBTQ groups. It's about inclusion, and how does that fit? And truly, honesty is the best policy, not sugarcoating. Sometimes it's just the hard truth of the matter, but honesty is the best policy, not trying to sugarcoat it, not trying to evade the situation, not try to evade the questions that are being asked. And encourage everybody to be their best self, because truly we are the ambassadors, within our workplace, with one another. You might not win everybody, but you can win somebody. And I think that ambassadorship, how you carry yourself, how you act in your jobs. We always say this, but being the only Black person in some situations can put a heavy, I guess, weight on your shoulder, because if we mess up our positions, they might not hire somebody else. And that's what I mean by that. So again, here's a quick checklist about the do's and don'ts. Listen to what's being said. So active listening is very important. Be honest, manage expectations. What do you want to get out of this conversation? Why are you asking? It's not a derogatory question, or it's not a confrontational question. Why are you asking? What is it that you want to know? Some of the do's and don'ts. Again, don't call out somebody. Don't make somebody feel badly for asking the question or approaching you about it. Don't interrupt. And again, don't fill with your own stories. Let them speak, let them have. Now, you may have examples and references, we all do, but again, we want it to be a balanced conversation and a true and honest conversation. Joe? So we talked about some of the terms that you might hear: race, racism. You're talking about advocacy, championing, direct discrimination, ethnicity. So we have a glossary of what some of these terms mean. It also helps the conversation to become informative, filled with facts, filled with knowledge, It helps people to become comfortable and familiarization when you have the terms and you understand what somebody's talking about. And, you know, you might have to take the time to explain what that means. You know, we talk about equity versus equality. That is, you know, one of the terms that we talk about. There is a difference between the two. And so being able to explain that to someone kind of helps them ease into it and be able to, you know, ask some very poignant questions that they may not have known to ask before. Next. So just to educate yourself, and I think it's a two-way street. I have things to say to you, but there's things that you can do on your own that can help educate. There's books. If we want to click and see some of the books, you can click here on the link here. Is it not working? Yeah, I think there's one, yeah. So there are some books. Joe, if you can maximize it just a little. I'm one of the blind people, so I can't try to see. But there are some books as resources here that you might want to go in and look at. There's books on race. There's, you know, I've given some folks books, you know, to think about. There's books like Before the Mayflower. There's books, you know, you've seen us highlighting some of the major figures of history that have done some remarkable things. There's articles that are in here. I think Johnny Henry Smythe is one of the folks that we have highlighted this month for Black History Month in the UK. And just so you know, there's Black History Month in the UK and Europe, but Black History Month in the United States is in February. So we'll get to that later.
Sorry, Carmen,
Yes.
the links aren't working on
That's all right. I'm just going to talk right through it. No problem,
Okay.
Joe. We're flexible here. And then there's some videos. There's a YouTube video. So again, I just encourage you to educate yourself. There's grassroots, there's Children's Corner. If you have children that want to know about race and, you know, or maybe you are just learning about some of the racial differences, you might even want to read the children's books. I know when I was first learning some languages, I speak French and German. So when I was learning some of those languages, the biggest start for me was children's books so that I could understand some of them at a more basic level in order to increase my knowledge. So that's just the education there. Again, the toolkit is available if you join TAMS. You can get a copy of it. Joe?
Sorry, now the whole thing's locked up. So you just keep on talking while I'm
It's
fixing.
okay.
I'm going to step in now.
Okay, Carol.
That's okay. I'm just going to say thank you, Carmen, so much for going through our toolkit. As I said, it's the first of many. The final slide was just, we've put together a set of questions so that you can actually do a survey and challenge yourself, which is brilliant. That was provided by one of our people in our group, Leslie, and a lot of the group has already done the survey and found it very sort of insightful. We're kind of at the end of our time, we're over time. So thank you so much for all those people that have held on and continued to listen to us. Thank you to Ranga and Stephen and Mayak and Carmen, and for everyone that has supported with us. I hope you were on to see our video as well. There's a lady that's on, a lady called Nisa, who's part of our group. She put our video together, absolutely amazing, really inspiring. You know, really touched everyone's hearts and gave an exceptional message. And I think that, you know, it hopefully resonated with everyone. You know, we have Mayak talking about the brown pound. We've got Ranga saying we need to be role models and to be visible. We have Steve going back to the grassroots and saying that we need to support our young children and the younger generation. And we hope that the messages that we've delivered today will resonate with you all, and you will continue to join us on our panels because we're all about making you stop, think and listen. So thank you so much for your time today. And I hope you enjoyed it and you'll continue to join the many panels that we are going to have going on from now on, and that you will want to get a copy of our toolkit and join us when we create our further toolkits in the future. So thank you, Ranga. Thank you, Mayak. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Carmen. and all those people behind the scenes that have, you know, supported with this today. And if there has been any questions, we have run out of time, but we will send out the answers to those questions to you. So thank you again, and good evening.
Thank you.
And good
Good
morning.
evening.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.